was saying, adults can get so stuck in their ways. You know, we've been alive long enough to really sort of get into these routines. And so we wanted to sort of wrap up with what are some of the questions that you would ask of adults about healing racism? What do you think adults need to be doing? What do you think they need to be more honest about?
One of the questions, so I think one of the things that adults need to do to heal is to listen, and I feel like, I don't know how to translate that into a question, but I feel like a lot of adults, they think that just like listening on the surface level, like just listening to somebody talk and not doing anything with that, like that's the same thing. But I don't think it is. I think that you need to listen to somebody and then you need to process that for yourself and find out what that means to you, and then do something about that.
And maybe a question from that could be, when you, after you listen to someone, do you feel emotionally impacted?
Yeah,
or
I
maybe
think that's a
that
good
could
question.
start.
That's a great question.
Yeah, I also feel like when I need learners to start thinking kids are not smart and as smart as they, like kids are smart and people need to start not people, grown-ups need to start.
I think a child of color, how do you affirm, reassure, or help them with the growing process?
I think that's really good.
And I was gonna try to come up with another one, but I couldn't think of no words.
So you have three or four now.
Do you think it's easier to heal from ages 13 to 17 when they protest against racism? And then if you're raising a child of color, how do you affirm? Is there a structure?
Reassure or help them through their healing process.
Yeah, we're good.
I think that's it.
Yes.
So I'll get up here
Last
like this.
question is, what do you want to do what do you want to do moving forward to end racism? So what I would do is just acknowledge the problems, find a solution, and put it all together.
What I want to do and what I'll commit to is I'll continue to listen and learn from people around me, people who aren't like me, and continue to devote my time and energy to learning, not just learning, but also then how to act, what I can do to dismantle racism, and whether that's at the policy level or sometimes at the individual level, just by having conversations with people.
I've been asked to do training for pastors who are now taking cross-cultural appointments and do coaching for them. I'm on committees that we deal with systemic racism, like sort of head on. So blessed to be able to say, look, I'm going to challenge this system, but I'm not just going to run away. Like, okay, let's get in here, let's roll up our sleeves, and let's get after it. And I think that is my calling to do that. As people come behind me, I'm like, I gotta leave a legacy. Now you can do it, and I got you. I'm gonna lift you up.
You're raising a child of color. How do you reassure them or help them in their healing process?
Can you repeat it one more time?
If you're raising a child of color, how do you reassure them or help them in their healing process?
The questions that y'all came up with are like brain exploding. Like asking that question as a young person, again, indicates why we need to be listening to kids. Now, I can't speak on raising a kid of color, but as a teacher and working with kids of color and just in the work that I do now, I don't know that I can help somebody heal unless they know what is wrong, right? So kind of like what Drake said in terms of, understanding that something's going on. And so my role, I see my role as just being open and not letting anything be taboo and not let anything be unspeakable, right? Like if a child is trying to say something, and I've been with students they're trying to say something happened and it was racially motivated, and they didn't know if they could say that to me. And I would just use the raw words, right? Like, and demonstrate to them, like, say what happened, you know? And they would be tiptoeing around words, and I would say white. So the teacher was white, and there was just this sense of like, oh, I can say that, right? And if I can do anything to help young black and brown kids, it's just to allow them to be themselves and just role model that, you know, I don't know about role model, but just be open and be there for them in whatever way they need.
I've been sitting here thinking like lots of things, but I think how do you help a child heal? I think you start to, one, affirm wherever their pain is. Oftentimes, we do not affirm the pain of a child. We want them to quickly get up and try it again. What would happen if we actually just sat with them and let them feel it, acknowledge that it's there, give them the tools and the resources to actually say, here's how you treat it, here's how you recover from it, and then move forward. I think what we often do is give them skills and tools that probably developmentally they really don't know how to handle. Because we believe that they are black boys, so you have to know how to do this. And it was like, what if I just focused on their age, their development, build them up, who they are, affirm when they're hurt, instead of being socialized like, oh, if they're hurt, you're less than a man, or if you're hurt, you need to just suck it up because you need to get back to work and keep it moving. And I have probably healed my own self because I have forced people around me to say, if I'm hurting, you're not going to tell me to stop hurting. That, I think, is how we can heal and heal children.
I went to a private high school, private junior high in St. Louis. My junior high principal said, we can't do nothing with him, we need to get him into a better school. Because I was getting straight A's and not going to class, didn't have to go to class. I could. My sister would tell me, hey, you got a test next week. I'll go get an A, and then I'm teaching a math class. Now, I'm not proud of that, because my mom was like, good Christian woman, she's like, this is some BS, why ain't my son in class? But so I ended up at a private school, 4 black kids in the class, learning at an early age how to compete. I talk about that a lot, so it's education that's pushing me. You mentioned, we talked a little bit about liberation theology. What I know about liberation theology, which started with the Latin community, is that how do you see yourself in God? That's important if you're really teaching that. How do we in a neighborhood, a community that is marginalized, to see God in them? And that's the Reader's Digest version of that. Because we're born in trauma. I mean, that's facts. We're born in trauma, and it is chronic. But what I've learned to do, because my dad didn't have a strong father. My mom was the breadwinner, so I had to figure it out. I had to figure life out the hard way. I had to compete and show, okay, how do I see myself as one of 90 kids, 2 of us are black. I competed. How did I see myself? I feel that if we're going to be there for the next generation, we have to work on our own healing as adults. Caldwell said, he's another pastor, great pastor, said that as a culture, after 400 years of what we dealt with, we all need therapy. Like all of us, you know, because we've inherited this trauma. So I see a therapist. I mean, I see it, I go face my issues, I go see that. I'm a life coach, I deal with, if I'm gonna help the next generation, I gotta work on me. And I gotta be honest and transparent and be willing to be real. And so, my paying it forward, you know, I'm trying to know, I've advised my undergrad chapter for the past 20 years. I got like 90 of them graduated. Got kids come down from west side of Chicago or from East St. Louis, and now you're competing at this big giant school. My job is to push them forward. That how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself? I mean, how do you see? We have some that were still banging, like me in the fraternity now in college. Why we gotta come to the frat house and you fighting? How do you see yourself? I had one kid that called me 2 o'clock in the morning one day after getting in a fight. I'm like, do you still see yourself as this kid that, you know, south side of Chicago, you're about to graduate with a 4-year degree from the University of Illinois, and how do you see yourself? Why didn't you get into grad school? How do you see yourself? He cried on my shoulder, took a year off, got his MBA from the University of Illinois. He is now a manager. How do you see yourself? So how do I see myself? So my job, after fighting through all the life I've fought through, is to pay it forward, because the issue's still chronic. We still got to remind ourselves. There are times when I go see my therapist, like that transfer, like, wait a minute, didn't we talk about that a while back? Yeah, because it's chronic, right? But how do when I talk to kids in the hood, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as I can't get beyond Champaign, Urbana because, you know, I'm not good enough. What did you say, liberation theology? Well, how does God see you? That's the flip side of that question. God sees a diamond in the rough, like a little Christian. You know? And so, it's not going to go away, but what I do like that the younger folks have said is we don't see the world like you see it because we're not afraid to have the conversations, right? However, I do know you're going to get in spaces where you do have to have these conversations. Come to the University of Illinois, predominantly white institution, whether you pledge a fraternity or not. You know, I'll say this last thing. I hope I haven't gone too long. I worked at Illinois State University when I got in the Marine Corps, and there was a professor who taught a literature, English lit class. He was tenured. He said he purposed that any black student would not pass his class because he had tenure. I sat in his class, I audited his class, and got on his last nerve, because you can't grade me, I'm gonna say what I gotta say. And because an older man said, I was 30 some odd years going back to school, because an older man sat in the class and said, I see myself this way. That was an example for, again, how do you have a right to compete at this school, and to challenge what that man said. So that's, to me, the way I don't think it's chronic. What the systemic racism is chronic, it's never going away, but how do we attack it better? And how do we, I've heard I love what I'm hearing from the young folks, but we see it in a little bit different way. But still, you dealt this hand, and we got to figure out how to keep playing it so that, you know, we move your needle. Like, I'm so proud of the guy who's got his MBA and figured out, you know, I ain't got to keep fighting my way out of this. Because I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I got into school. But I see he had to see himself in that manner. Does that make sense? Lights to you.
This is powerful. I don't want to. Back to the original question, right? I don't have a child of color that I'm going to raise. However, I do want to echo a couple things that I think are powerful, and some of the things that I've learned during my own journey in issues of racial healing, because racism, whether it's individual, whether it's structural, or whether it's systemic, does harm all of us, right? And that harm is invisible, and it is automatic. You know, we are born as blank slates, but our first breath in this society breathes in the air of systemic racism. And so I think for me, the first thing is to be honest with a child about that. Not to scare them, not to re-traumatize them, but to say, look, here's the wound, here's the disease that we're fighting. And I think, Chandra, I think you said, give them tools. Give them tools to fight that disease, and you start at an early age. And the other thing that I've been reflecting on here is just really powerful. Many of us, right, all the adults in this room have been doing some level of facilitation, this work, right, for the last several months. The questions that you guys came up with, the group of 9 or 10 kids that you worked with, came up with, that you're representing here today, are more powerful than any question that I asked any of the people that were in any of my projects, and that's a little embarrassing. But at the same time, it speaks loudly in terms of how powerful youth voice is and how we should listen to it, because it's just like literally sets me back on my heels, and it's like makes me think. So thank you.